go visit, and we can make a few days to meet.
Everybody,
Yeah, it's right.
call this meeting of the Tucker County Board of Education into session. All members are present. Will you please stand and recite the pledge of allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm assuming there's no public comments. Student delegations, staff reports. I'm assuming, is you going to report, Alex? I mean, I got bus reports on here.
No, it's on there.
There is a bus report on there.
He's under TC.
Yeah, he's under
Oh, there's no,
Yeah,
There's nothing there, but there's.
Okay,
yeah.
there's no attachment.
There's no
There's no
attachment.
attachment, so we didn't know there was anything in there.
Yeah, it just says Alex.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Did
about
you?
buses, because
You don't know about
I knew may. If we're
They're
talking
yellow
about
and they're
buses,
long and they got black numbers.
they're yellow, and that's about all I know. All right, so I thought I'll take you through kind of where we stood in our academic achievement, which of course is the SAT for us at the high school level. Kind of take you through where we stand at, and what that kind of looks like, and where the ups and downs of it. It's a little bit of both. And so if you we'll just start with the national overall. Those are numbers that are extremely disappointing. Overall, West Virginia, the mean score, average score for the state was at 911. We're at 867. Our target goal is to be at or above the state average, because we certainly do, we like to think of ourselves and truly do believe that we should beat most people in the state. And we certainly didn't do that with the overall score on the SAT this year.
And this is what grades?
This is just 11.
Just 11.
Just 11. Which, there's, that class, just to be real honest with you, had a lot of potential in it. And you'll see, like I said, there's some ups and downs within when you start breaking down that data. This was one that it was just extremely disappointing. Is not what I anticipated personally, particularly in that mean score. So those scores get broken down into two categories. They get broken down into English language arts and math. And so you'll see that those scores are significantly different between the two. They tell two totally different stories when you go into them. So we'll start with ELA, just because when you start running reports, that one's always at the top. And so you see here that when you look at the mean score, we were below the state. The 477 was the state number, 458 was our number. And then that's broken down into the state categories. Those numbers, there is some slight difference between the national benchmarking numbers, or the what they consider state meeting standards, and then what West Virginia does. Those numbers up there are based on the West Virginia ones. Those are what we are accountable to at the school, and the percentages. So you may have a little bit of trouble seeing some of this, so I'll just kind of go through each individual piece. 12% of our students exceeded standards in ELA. That was down 2% from last year. However, 33% of our students met standards. That was a 6% increase in the meet standards total from last year. So again, you can kind of see that. Partially, that there again, some good and bad, but when you start breaking them down. Partially meet standards. 30% of our students partially met the standard, which is a 13% increase over the number last year. And then the category that you most want to avoid that does not meet standards, that was 25%, which we did decrease that number from last year, 17%. So we've moved some kids out of that lowest category and up. We would still like to see that exceed standards number increase. So the mean score sometimes, like I said, that is not my favorite number to always look at, just because it is an average. A low score can drag that down. But that's kind of where the students move. So again, you can find some positives within that. This next slide I know is hard to read, and if you're like me, I need to hold that. So I'm going to give you a copy of it here. This is what's called the growth report. It's something that I've been looking to familiarize myself with, because this is something we did not have the ability to utilize this until 2 years ago. I don't know. I think you have it. There's one. This isn't something we've had the ability. This is the first full cohort that we've had the ability to do this with. When my second year in this job, I started PSAT benchmarking all of our students each fall. We do that in October. And so that's kind of been this will be the 4th year of that project. But so for the first time, this is my first cohort to go through all 3 years where we've been able to track them, looking at from their 9th grade PSAT benchmarking up through their SAT score that they get in the 11th grade. And so this is the first time this report has been fully applicable. And so I thought I would show it to you. And so when you look at it like this, you'll notice that it does say in there that let's see here, right here. You'll see it's higher than the range projected from the previous test. So what this means is if you look at that score, and by the way, there's the numbers between the total test takers will differ, because this report only looks at kids that have taken multiple tests. So like if they take the PSAT 8-9 their freshman year, they take the PSAT their 10th grade year, they take it their 11th grade year, then they take the SAT. So it's looking at what that trajectory is like when they came to us versus what it looked like when they took their kind of final assessment with us. And so instead of just looking at numbers, its goal is to look at what growth looks like. And so overall English, I have to admit, we're fairly pleased with where the projections are. We're not pleased with where the mean average score is. We have work to go there, but if you take a look, again, these numbers will differ from what I just showed you, because again, these are looking at kids that have shown up, taken their PSATs, and taken the testing, so we can see how they progress. So you'll notice some averages that are slightly different than what I just talked about. So you see the first number there on that chart, that was the PSAT 8-9 for that cohort. You see that they came in with a mean score in ELA of 420. That was PSAT 8-9. The time that they got to the SAT in 11th grade, that projection had reached 470. And so if you look at, you'll see that's that solid line that's up there, that kind of that's kind of higher between those two bars. And then it projects what they could do if they were to take the SAT again, which they can do on their own. It's not something the state of West Virginia pays for, but it's something they can do on their own, that it gives you kind of a projection of where that could go. And if you see here, those scores increased 50 points from it, and they're actually at above the projected range the College Board thought we could get students to. And so that's something that as a school that is really something for us. We are proud of that, just because we didn't, we exceeded where it would have projected to be. I do like this, like I said, just because it is something that kind of shows the progress that the school assists them in. If you flip over to the next page, which is this chart right here, there's a weird quirk in the data here. I think this is Lambert and I talked about this. For some reason, our kids drop when they take that PSAT. When they go from 9th to 10th, there's a weird drop there every year. I think that is due to the test switches. It switches from a test that is more 8th grade focused. It's PSAT 8-9, so it's kind of that 8-9 mix. Then when they hit PSAT 10, that is the actual PSAT. We do it twice to give them 2 cracks at National Merit Scholarships. And so it kind of switches more to the high school version. And so we've had that every single time where you'll see, if you look from PSAT 8-9 to PSAT in the 10th grade year, you'll see that dropped 30 points. But we do recover that, and we've always recovered that. It's just kind of a weird quirk in the data. Personally, what I would like to see the State Department do is make the 8th grade assessment the PSAT 8 so that it works across there, but I certainly can't speak for the middle school principals. They may hate that idea. But as far as like consistency in the data, that would help us if we gave that PSAT 8-9 to our 8th graders statewide, so that it was all kind of linked. So if you look, you can see then from 10th grade to 11th grade, we recover that from a 390 to a 420 in English. And then the same thing, credit to our teachers who are working with those kids in 11th grade. They increased from a 420 to a 460. And that was just from October through April. So we are proud of that number. And that's good work by those teachers. So you can see that when it comes to ELA, again, averages aren't there, but there really is significant opportunity for our kids to grow in those numbers. And so that's kind of like I said, there's good, there's bad.
On the second page, do you give the test twice every semester because the scores are listed twice?
Which, let me see.
On the back of the first page.
So
2023 10th grade, fall 2023 10th grade. They're all of them are listed twice. I just wondered.
Trying to sort that out.
Or maybe were you reporting something different on each of those?
I think it's comparing
The
8th, 9th to the 10th grade, and then he's comparing the 10th
Yeah.
grade to the
Yeah.
11th grade. So like if you look at it in chunks of 2,
Yeah.
like I think it's comparing those top 2, and then he's comparing that 10th grade
Okay.
testing into the
So-
11th grade, and then.
Yep. It is a kind of a wonky report to look at. All right. Like I said, you will not see there's a significant difference between ELA and math. Math, I mean, just to put it honest, if these numbers right here, which would be SAT overall mean, if we could increase that math score, that's where the load comes in. It's because that's a combination of both scores. And so let's take a look at the math. You'll see the West Virginia mean score, again, our target school score as a school. 434 would have been our goal, 409 is where we came in. You'll see here that unfortunately that exceed standards was at 0%. We did not have an exceed standards student. That's a 3% decrease. The 3%, it was one kid is what it was. So it looks a little higher than it was, but it was one kid. Meet standards, that was at 5% last year, same thing, you're talking about one kid. And that went from what was 5% to 7% this year. Partially meet standards, that was 33% last year, it's up to 34%. And then the same, again, that category that we work very much to avoid 59%, no change in that does not meet standard. And again, you can see the significant difference as between those two scores. And you can see where our work has to be, is in that math. Same thing, I mean, this chart, the next page, if you flip through it, it'll show you a totally different story from ELA than what we had, whereas not only did we exceed the projected growth, we did not meet the projected growth when it came to math. You'll see that from the PSAT 8-9 to the SAT, it would have projected those scores to be somewhere around the 450 mark, and we did not meet that. We only were at 420, so we're 30 points off of what that would have been projected to be. And so, not only, like I said, we didn't meet the projection, let alone exceed it. And so that's certainly something that's clearly where our focus has to be in this 25-26 school year, is we've really got to look at how we're doing things. We're going to go through, that's kind of what the next step here is. I'm just going to kind of start talking to you about those. If you take a look at the from benchmark to benchmark side of things, same thing, that really odd drop that occurs when they go from 9th to 10th. Again, the test changes that year, and I think that has a significant piece to do with that. We did see there was growth from the PSAT in 10th grade to the PSAT in 11th grade. You can see that on average, students gained 20 points in those categories. And then there was also growth in that from the 11th grade in the fall to the SAT of 30 points there. So, you can see that there is work being done there, and there's growth that is made in those. But again, it is nowhere equivalent to what we see in the English numbers. And we're very aware of that, and that's something that it's a real challenge for us, and clearly a target where we've got to look at what we're doing here. This is going to kind of get into some things that this is not solidified. I tell you, I spent today just looking at options, and I've been doing that. When I've been in the office, this is what my focus is right now. So some of the changes that will be made. Obviously, the big one you all know about, and I appreciate, is the master schedule change that you all approved. I'm not going to stand here, and I think I said this in that exact presentation. I'm not going to stand here and tell you it's the secret sauce. The research says that schedule changes are not the secret sauce, but they can be something that limits you. And ultimately, if you think about, I was looking at, just some different considerations. You're talking about some of those. If you have a kid, one of the two areas that we're the weakest in on the SAT and math are Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. We have an algebra issue there. Here's one thing I can tell you about that Algebra 2 class. We currently, under our current schedule, we just finished up utilizing, particularly this school year. You got to remember that Algebra 2 teacher, we didn't really, correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Lambert, it was almost February before we started rolling with a consistent second semester schedule. And so those kids that had Algebra 2 spring semester, whereas a kid that has it from August through mid-January and covers all that Algebra 2, those kids, you might as well exclude January, because it was days, 1 or 2, wasn't it? It was real small January. You're saying we had the test early in April, you're really only looking at February and March that they got those Algebra 2 standards. I understand they had it every day, but it's my argument.
Why don't you take out 2 weeks of state tournament?
Plus, you're right, you've got the state basketball tournament that doesn't affect those fall kids in there. And so, again, I do want to reiterate, I am not arguing in any way, shape, or form that it's a secret sauce, but I don't think it was helping us. Just with the sheer, you look at the data is very clear. Geometry, and then what they call advanced math, which is the most recent math that the kids take. Those are our two strongest suits. Where we, like I said, struggle is a lot of the algebra piece of it. And that's partly because I imagine that we have, Algebra 1 is what they do freshman year. That Algebra 2, again, for a lot of those kids, they haven't done that entire course. And so the most recent course that we currently have that all kids complete in its entirety before they take that test is geometry. And of the 4 categories, it's close to being our top one. And so I think there's some correlation, and again, not necessary. I am waiting. I'm going to reach out to some additional principals across the state to see if they're doing anything different. I looked today, and it doesn't look like they have filled in on some. I don't know the scores. I can get those before I do. Just to try to see what we've got some. I've talked to 2 different test providers that focus on SAT and ACT to see if there's some strategies that our kids that really want high SAT scores, we can get those kids in there, and see if there's any type of trainings and that they could provide for our teachers. There's one program that we've had some kids participate in the past, and a lot of their work doesn't necessarily focus on the math, it's the test taking strategies that are there. And I think our teachers really struggle with that because they see these incoming scores, and it's really hard for them to go into test-taking strategy mode when they've got that math content to cover. And I can understand how you would get that. One of the things, Mrs. Lambert and I have had extensive conversations. There is one of the things, so this is our second year of the digital SAT where it's digitally administered. One of the things that we've got to do a better job of learning about is the test is called, it's adaptive now, which means that when they take a certain portion of it, it adjusts the questions and thus the scoring and how they do on that initial piece of it that they get. And so we've got to learn that process. Again, I cannot say this scientifically, but we were on the upward swing until they went adaptive. And I don't know that we have reevaluated our efforts to meet those. Again, I'm not saying that is in any way, shape, or form the entire thing, but just a weird correlation that we've had. We've got to learn more about them. But one of the things that's built into that digital test is a calculator called Desmos. Some feedback that I've heard out there is that calculator can be really beneficial if students know how to use it. And there's a financial benefit to the school as well in that I don't know if you've ever bought calculators in math, but they're extremely expensive. And so we don't need to, and so so we spend money on those things, but I think we're living in a world where I don't think we need to do that. It's my understanding even the 8th grade test has a version of Desmos built in. And I think if we can use that digital calculator and teach kids that, if we can start with our 8th graders and teach them that all the way through to where they're using that 4 straight years, and that is just how they use the math. It sounds like there's some real benefits in that. That it can do some things. And again, just trying to find little things that we can change what we're doing. That's just one thing. One of the things that we're going to focus on this year is a pre-reteach we'll start in spring. I'm hopeful that this won't be as necessary because you've got to remember right now what we're doing is kids that even if it was Algebra 2, if they had it in the fall, they'd have that time to forget it. And so this year they will have that math year round every other day. But I think it would be to our benefit to re-engage students with that content, refresh them, particularly upon those Algebra 1 standards. Our data is very clear that Algebra 1 is where we have a real problem. And I don't think that's an instructional problem. I really don't. I think it is. We did some benchmarking a few years ago where we did some testing and the kids did really well on what was recent, but they've forgotten that Algebra 1 content. So we've seen that in the data before, and it kind of continues. If we can remind them of that content prior to, I think we can make some real traction or make some real headway there. And so that's something else we're going to do. And then we're going to work with the teachers. One of the tools that we lost 2 years ago was we used to spend an immense amount of time where we would go into our math questions. We would learn the exact problems and the exact standards that where we struggled at, and then we would go and we would hit that really hard in the classrooms. They took that away from us a couple of years ago when they switched digital, and I don't know that we could recoup that. Now you get broad kind of there are categories that you get, but there are question banks that come with those. And we've got to get into those question banks and get those into those kids' hand. Something else I'm playing around with is called a flex schedule. I had a conference the week before last with a company called Flex Time Manager. And there is, to kind of get into educational terms with you a little bit, but we talk a lot in education about interventions in tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 being supports that all students receive, tier 2 being a little more focused, and tier 3 being our highest level of intervention. What Flex Time Manager does is we have that enrichment period throughout the day, and right now it's not successful. But what Flex Time does is it allows schools to go in and deliver those tiers of intervention and also use it as a reward based upon whether, like, you can, instead of just going, here's where my 9th graders are going to go, here's where my 10th graders are going to go. We can't currently update that and follow that and track that and safely do that in Weavis, because it requires, if a kid gets better or worse, you have to reschedule them. But what Flex Time does is it allows you to kind of manipulate those kids based upon where they go and what interventions they receive based upon their performance, or it can be reward, however you want to do it. And so I'm looking into some options on that, and I think that we can do two things with that. We can offer academic interventions that would target those kids specifically. So for example, if we wanted to create a Tuesday intervention focusing on just what's called the heart of algebra, the rudimentary algebra, we could do that with those kids, and it could just be, if they're juniors that are struggling with that did poorly on the PSAT, you could put them in and you could manipulate that in October. You wouldn't have to rewrite schedules with it. So that's a company that that's kind of, I think that's where I can get the most bang for my buck right now with that. We also, one of the things that I'm a big believer in, and like I said, that report right there is the first kind of look at it, where we could look at how they progress throughout their years. I do really believe in the PSAT, getting them around those scores and getting that in there, and benchmarking and getting exposed to that. We had a pretty significant issue with we were using a free third-party website to benchmark in the spring. It worked really well last year. It collapsed this year in the middle, and the results are, I tried to pour through them. They're not useful. Some kids did portions of it, some of them didn't. We couldn't get the full data. But the company that makes the SAT has what they call Blue Book. That's how we actually take the test. But they have practice ones built in there. And our goal is to learn by the spring how to benchmark in there and actually pull that data out of there so we can use that. And again, I really hate when we're trying to use third parties and companies and things like that. Just give me what I need to teach kids and let's assess using one company, one straightforward path. And so we're going to be working on that as well. We're going to look at, we've got to do some things that are different in our classrooms. I think personally, one of the biggest things that we can do within our classrooms, math-wise, and I feel this because I was that kid. I loved school with the exception of math class. And often we see that and we just see a level of disengagement with math or a less interactivity with math that we don't see in the other subjects. It's just, and I don't think that's a teacher issue. And as somebody who kind of lived that, our kids, we've got to build up that confidence level. And so there's some strategies out there I've been reading a little bit about. And then Mrs. Lambert had us do a book study and some engagement over the year, trying to get some of that stuff into those classrooms so that we can engage kids in math. Because so much of it is kids that just kind of, and if you look at it, I can't do it with it in a public setting, but if you look at the results of kid to kid, where you're looking at their ELA versus the math, I mean, you can probably guess when this has this percentage and that has that percentage. There's several kids that did really well there's many kids that did really well in the English, not the math. And part of that, again, is, maybe that's not their strong suit, but a lot of it is just a different level of engagement with that content. And so part of the things you can do with Flex is you can also use that to incentivize some things there. And then I'm going to get a little bit at the end here. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint because it's something I was just thinking I'd chat with you all about, is our work study program and using that as an incentive and setting some objectives so that has grown way more popular than I ever anticipated, and it was not kind of anticipating that, but it got there. So now my goal is to leverage that, okay? It clearly was something kids were hungry for. Let's use that for leverage to try to get those scores up as well. To kind of end on a little bit of a positive note, this was something we are really proud of, and it has to do with that work study piece of it, but not entirely. Our chronic absenteeism rate last year was around 28%. This year, it got below 14. That end of May gets us. Those extra days on there didn't help, but significantly improved, cut that by about 50%. And giving some more options. Those seniors certainly help with that. I cannot stress to you enough how important the work Ms. Marks does with all of the initiatives, the monitoring on that. That is absolutely critical for getting that number. We are proud of that and to kind of avoid some state watch list. And I got to thank my staff for that. So, if you would like, I can talk a little bit about the work study. But first, if you all want to, math, English questions, that data, there's a lot to unpack there. I know I want to do that very quickly. I would ask, not to get questions, when we go through this schedule change, I think I said it when I was down here last time, change is hard sometimes, but at least I'm hoping, not that I want these scores, that's all I'm saying, but you can see why, I didn't anticipate that, I'll be honest with you, but it's just kind of another, reason I felt that we needed to do this. Guys, I know you're going to get some, we're going to have a kid here and there in August that's going to forget what day it is. We've got some signages going up in the building. We've got some steps that'll be in place to mitigate that. And you may hear some. Please relay those, I guess, to the superintendent. We will be working to fix that. We're not going to get it perfect right out of the bat, right off the bat. We're going to continue to work at it. When we get to, give us that month to let kids learn it, I am extremely confident that we will get this right. But I want to be clear that there's going to be, in that first few days in August, there's natural, change is going to be there. I encourage the community that you hear, concerns about that, relay them, because we want that feedback. We want to get better with it, but also understand that it's a brand new system, and will be new for our folks just a little bit. But again, much bigger schools than us do that, and they have figured out, been able to run it for decades. We're capable of that as well. But you'll have some speed bumps. Every change, nothing's perfect, but we'll take that feedback and we'll get better with it, and we'll tweak it from there. I'm really interested to see what that dynamic looks like in August versus what it looks like come November, December, when it just becomes just what we do. I think you'll see that those things will start to kind of naturally take care of themselves.
Anybody have anything else for Mr. Bork?
Well, I'd like to help with that algebra, but I know all your teachers are going to say, we got this.
You're welcome to share ideas with me. I'll take a guy, I am way open to this is, I'm not going to hide from my background is not math. I have over the last, since those results dropped, you would be stunned at how much reading I've done on math. Trying to learn different academic strategies that are there. I'm open to all ideas. Please share them, with me. If you've got them, we would love to just, clearly. And I think my math teachers would be honest with this too. They don't want this either. That's not who the data that we want representing our school, our community, and that is certainly it's tough everywhere. But whatever we could do, I wish there was a secret sauce. I wish there was a button we could push. We would have pushed that, but we're going to continue to try different strategies until we find something that gets us some headway. And I really do. It just we were making progress in these last few years. I don't know. I don't know what changed in the test changed, but that's not an excuse. We have to adapt to that. I don't know that we're there yet, but we've got to.
I think the adaptive portion of it is a bigger, I don't know if the correct word would be issue, but hurdle than we realize. And I think, I can't, and we've done adaptive tests for years. The GSA is adaptive, we've done that since we went to the Smarter Balance and all of those things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to me how you're comparing apples to apples if everybody's taking a different test and everybody's getting different questions. And yes, that question might be a higher rate, and so you're getting more points for it, but what about the kid who just lucks into getting that question right? So while we're all taking different tests with different questions, I just don't understand how we're comparing that on a national level.
And we've asked some questions. I'll just be real honest. We haven't got the best answer to that. We've asked some folks like, what if how do we make sure that those kids, like, what's in that? Is it a hodgepodge? Is it hard one? Does it start with the freshman level and work its way up? Is it a hodgepodge? We've not gotten a straight answer. And again, that's not an excuse. But I do think we've got to learn, if that's what we're going to be accountable to, it's not good to not, if you're going to have a performance evaluation, it's not very good to not know what the rubric is, what the criteria is. And that's something that, I think we've got to do a better job of understanding that. Causation correlation, there's certainly a correlation between flipping that test and something happened. I mean, my first 2 years in this, I really liked the trajectory we were on. The last 2 years, that is just, whether it's a coincidence or what it is, there's certainly something there. Our math teachers, we've had mostly, 2 of the 3 have been consistent. They're teaching the content. It's just, we're going to continue to try pieces until we get there. And that's like all that advice, because I don't have a math background, but my passion is improving kids in what they can succeed at. And so whatever that takes, that's what we're going to do with it. We're going to continue to we're not giving up on it. We're not going to sit here and we're not going to say we can't do math in Tucker County, because that's not true. That's a bold-faced lie, and that's the attitude you're going to have. Because others are, and I always believe our kids are better than theirs. So we're going to continue.
The SATs required, right?
It is.
Okay, and we're talking about tying work studies to SAT to allow them to go to work study?
So I'm playing around with that idea. I can bring back to you so there, like I said, one of those things that I believe is leverage. I will tell you, I will not put a criteria of you must meet college readiness standards on that work study, because that's counterproductive. Those kids they're not college bound, they have to be ready to go into work. That's counterproductive.
That's where I was going to get
Yes.
at. We have some kids
Yes.
their college is the last thing on their mind.
Yes.
But they can get a very good career
Yes.
if they are allowed to do some work studies, things like that.
But like something where, hey, get this score, or you have to submit like a I'm work ready portfolio, something to where it is just like an extra piece of, hey, I should put, because if I could put up individual student data, obviously I can't do that. You would be disheartened, probably like I am, if you look at some of the names that are on there. There are a lot of kids on there that they're not college-bound kids. They're also not the numbers that score would show. And so getting them to put forth more effort,
Yes.
that is, if I can pull that, but yes, I'm glad you asked that, because that's a very delicate balance of not being counterproductive, but good grief, don't come in and just bubble the finger. Go in and
I trust that you'll make sure it's right. I have no doubt.
however we can do that, is yes. The work study thing, I was going to continue, I forgot to continue with that. That program grew exponentially, way faster than I thought, and it has grown again. There are pros and cons. I'm not going to sit here and name businesses or anything like that, but there are kids that used it really successfully, and there are kids that we wish they wouldn't have been. Now, there's an argument. It's an interesting academic debate. You can certainly argue that a kid that goes to a job that maybe we don't think is up to their level, but they're learning, like maybe they don't want to do that, or maybe they do want to do that. So we've seen some of that. That's really good. I have redone the entire monitoring process for it. It's been my project. We had to do that. It blew up faster than what the process allowed. So we've redone that entire thing. There's a lot more accountability. In fact, I'd like to get to where those are board approved, if that's something that you would be open to where the board sees the list and gives us a green light on those organizations, so that you guys can have some oversight and see where that's going. In the new system that we've developed, that will be an option for them. And then, like I said, we use that as a carrot. You've got to be very careful for a kid that is going to college, or is not going to college, or is going to the workforce, has an opportunity to get a jump start on their career. That's the whole point of work study. But like I said, if we can do that to where, hey, you can avoid this portfolio saying you're career ready or something like that, we can use that here. But the work study program, we're going to really look at what that looks like and how that's monitored. And we've redone the authorization packet kids will get. They'll get a completely different packet when they come in this year, and they'll have there's bi-weekly timesheets that go with it. There's an evaluation process. The grading structure has been redone, and the monitoring contact system within it has all been redone. Like I said, I'm not that there was some really good in it, but it did not. We were not prepared for that. But clearly, the indicator is it's a really big carrot for kids. They like it. 100% honesty. It's why that number looks. It significantly helps that number. And there really is value. The kids that get value out of it did really well with that. And I'm confident that there are kids out of that program that did the work study and were better prepared for the workforce of which they entered immediately upon graduation. I believe that. I also believe there were kids who did not utilize it successfully, and that's on that burden's on us to fix that. And I really think we have a 15 plan for doing that. And like I said, if that's something you all want to see, I can send it to the superintendent. It's a whole new restructuring of that process. Much more streamlined. A lot of it before was not a document that I wrote. It was a document that had been it was given to me when I was hired. It was not streamlined. It was very confusing. It didn't allow for good oversight. We can collect a lot of that information, and so we improved that a lot. I think it'll be a lot better, and I think it'll be a good thing. And again, that is significant.
Yeah, I definitely want to make sure that with our work study program, those kids are willing to do the work study.
Yeah.
They're just not,
We're not-
Kathy's my best friend, and I'm going to send my son to her work study program, and she'll make sure that he gets a check mark every day.
I'm going to be working with the secretary.
I'm not accusing of any business or any child doing anything wrong, but I can see what I can.
It did. Like there were kids that I guarantee you put down hours that were in bed. Like God did that. And so that has all been, it's now a daily authorization that's submitted to the school every 2 weeks, not at the end of the semester. It now comes with, they get rated on performance, a daily performance, and then there's 2 evaluations that come with it each semester. And so it's a lot. We're very much, you are 100% right about that. What it was before is it was all tied to career and tech. And so it's been broadened out there. A lot of them still have career and tech pieces to them, but it's been broadened out, and we want to get that. And so, like I said, it just took off. The oversight pieces were not necessarily meant for that, and so we learned a lot throughout that this year. And actually, like I said, I'll send it down to the superintendent. And if you guys have feedback on it, it's something that I spent a lot of time over the summer. I spent days going through that process. And so I would like your all's feedback with it. If you've heard things in the community, so-and-so is doing this, and if we can kind of get at that gap, that's what we want to do. I think I got most of it out of, what I want out of it. But obviously you guys hear more of that, communal feedback, and I'd love to figure out, you guys can see that.
I have a quick question. I know it's extremely hard to add a class to the Career Center, but the electrical field is just exploding.
I am always open to that idea. We had, I will certainly pass that along to Mr. Shahan and see what that exploration is. It's been a while since I have engaged in that process. My first year, we had some money that was sitting around in an account, and I tried to use it to be honest with you, we were trying to use it on a program that we could afford. The foundation for electrical is a little more expensive because of the safety criteria that have to be implemented building-wide. The State Department, not only denied the program, took the money. And so that was really disappointing. And so I haven't, that was
Wasn't that cosmetology?
cosmetology. Yeah, we had $100,000 that had been acquired through clean energy grant. That was Jay Hammer did that. And I tried to, we went through, the gentleman who was the curriculum director at that time. Him and I worked very hard to, and we're had the, and it just didn't. Yeah. So, yeah, I will pass that along. I mean, it is a very well-funded part of our education. The State Department, or the legislature, seems to indicate that that's kind of the direction that they want schools focusing on. You hear a lot about that, and so, at the end of the day, maybe the start is just pulling a program out, because you're exactly right. That is so much of that, and actually, I don't want to go down into a rabbit hole here, but like as those programs go, that sometimes I think hurts our SAT schools. As the interest in career and tech and career readiness, because they kind of pull against each other sometimes. And so you're trying to tell kids of what they should do, how they, why they're both meaningful. But yeah, I certainly will pass that along to him and see maybe we just begin with the exploration. I believe, Keith, that was our first step as we went through. What are the safety requirements? Like structurally, what do you have going on? And I remember when we essentially came to it, cosmetology, you think about it, it's just some plumbing, it's just water. There are some chemical disposal, things like that. But some of the other ones are a little more comprehensive.
I bet you get a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guarantee the welding's the same way. If we ever had a welding program, cosmetology would be very popular amongst our females. And the welding, all of those things. I mean, I certainly do. And I'm not opposed to options that we have to be very careful here. So this is not going down. But if we ever needed to do something like that, because I don't want to talk about what the finances look like, but if we need partnerships with other ones, I don't know if we can do that. We have to dig into that. But anything we can do, but certainly, Mr. Shane may be.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you for your report.
Yep. You need to stick around.
Not unless you really want to.
Any other bus reports?
Okay, so I just threw this on here to see if this would be something you all would be interested in. Harry does give these to me monthly, and we have them in a folder and we review them, but we haven't shared them. So at the last meeting, we were kind of talking about if we knew the bus number and the odometer reading and all of that. And then I looked at this report and I thought, well, this might give them what they're looking for. So I kind of just threw this on here just to see if this is something you would like to see monthly, and we can include it.
Yeah, I absolutely would like to see it. I actually would like to see maybe a little more depth. For this bus, I'll just pick out the top on there, 9B. How many times has it been broken down this month? What did we do to fix it?
Okay.
How many of the XYZ parts have we had to buy in last month, quarter, whatever, for our buses? Just to kind of see the use of the bus and things that, if we see a problem, hey, why do we have to keep putting regular tires on?
Okay, so this is for the month of June. So we'll start this off. I mean, obviously.
Well, I'm thinking it really isn't going to be imperative until maybe after the first quarter of school.
Right.
After.
But you'll be able to see what buses are running, which ones we're using for some buses, the fuel usage, those sorts of things. This one's just going to show you, June, we had a couple of days of school. We have a couple buses that are running, 3 buses that are running summer school. They're going to have more miles on them than anything that took a field trip. So this one isn't probably the best one to use. Really, it was just a discussion piece to see if you would find this information useful. And if so, I'll just start including it on the agendas for you.
Please.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Another information now, we're down to board members self-appraisal.
Okay. As you know, you guys were rock stars and you got this completed well before the deadline. So it has already been posted to the website. It has already been sent to the state to let them know that we met the requirements of this. And I do like to see, now I feel like we have a pretty veteran board. This is not new to any of you anymore. So you're feeling more confident about the things that we do, about the information that you have. That makes me feel more confident because it means that I'm telling you things that you need to know. So I was happy to see this. But this gets this checked off our list. This was due by August 15th. to the state, and we are way ahead of that. And they have confirmed that they have received it, and that we have met all of the requirements of that by having it on the website and posting it everywhere it needs to go, plus having it on today's agenda. So is there anything anybody wishes to discuss about this? I just felt pretty good that, it was pretty evident to me that I have a pretty veteran board that is comfortable in the operations and how things are working. So I like to see that.
Any questions on that? So down to attendance exceptions, we have one at Davis Thomas and one at the high school. So Commissioner Lyons, do you have any questions on those?
I want to ask about the one in high school. I know that it's information, but is this person, this child, is he going to school in Kentucky County whole time? Is he transferred or what I'm getting at, he's not going to be able to walk with this class.
They're homeschooled, they don't walk with their
That's
class.
what I'm saying, that he's not going to be able to. I mean, if he were in school regularly.
He's never been in school.
Okay.
He's typically been homeschooled in Randolph County, but they've moved to drive work from the Helvetia area. And so he's just transferring it to Tucker County. He's never been in school.
We have the consent agenda, to have approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any question on the minutes of the previous meeting? Payment of bills? That's it. Is there anything else that's not? All in favor? We have five votes to approve the consent agenda. None personnel.
Right. We have nothing under professional resignations and retirements, nothing under service. Under extracurricular resignations and retirements, we recommend the following action as presented. Gina Carroll, resignation as assistant girls volleyball coach at TCHS, effective July 15th, 2025.
What happened there?
Her daughter decided she wasn't playing.
All in favor? Are there motion approved?
So moved.
Second,
Second,
any discussion?
what was the answer to that question?
Her daughter was going to play and decided she didn't want to play.
Okay, we just approved or not?
Yeah.
I was wondering the same thing, y'all. It's like, we know it's just about to do 60. All in favor? That's 5-0.
Okay, under professional employment. We'll get to take these together.
I am good. Everybody else good?
I'm good.
Okay. Recommend the following action as presented. Melissa Bonner, intervention specialist at DTEMS, beginning with the 25-26 school year. Tara Dilly, mentor teacher at TVEMS, beginning with the 25-26 school year. Christine Ward, mentor teacher at TVEMS, beginning with the 25-26 school year. And Megan Helming, mentor teacher at DTEMS, beginning with the 25-26 school year.
There a motion?
Simple.
Second,
Second.
discussion. All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Oh, I forgot the substitute
That's
teacher.
excellent.
Yeah, substitute teacher renewals for the 25-26 school year. Are we going to take these together too?
Yes.
Okay. Bonnie White, Tiffany Beaver, Allison Delore, Ross Boggs, Deborah Boggs, Joseph Michael, Cynthia Gokenauer, Beverly Wiles, Gregory Heyer, Amanda Nusili, Bradford Spencer, Thomas Gutschall, Justin Samples, and Deborah Chapman.
Got a motion. Second, discussion. How
So they
curious,
met all their requirements.
and how's the result last for the requirements for substituting? Did they say anything? Response?
I mean, we had some people that decided not to be on the list, and that's fine. And we've not held our retirees to that, as we kind of felt that, they've earned their
Right.
right to sub when they want to.
I'm just curious as to how the reaction has been since we did it last year.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some people choose not to return on the list, and that's okay.
They don't say
And
that.
we've had some people who stepped up and subbed. So, the desired effect.
That's good. Any other discussion?
Are you gonna send another letter this fall or is that the same deal?
All All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Okay, under service employment. I'm gonna just take these in chunks if that's okay. We'll do the first one and vote and then we'll go through just like we did the top part. Under service employment, we recommend the following action as presented. Muhammad bin Mazuza, long-term custodian at TCHS, effective with the start of the 25-26 school year until the return of the regular employee.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? Will you do Johnson?
Thank you. Have practice.
All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Okay, under substitute secretary renewals for the 25-26 school year, we have Courtney Cousin and Meredith Smith.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Under substitute bus operator renewals for the 25-26 school year, we have David Cooper, Rachel Ball, and Ricky Rozier.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Under substitute aid renewals for the 25-26 school year, we have Catherine Whitmore, Bonnie White, Rachel Stoneman, Courtney Cousin, Meredith Smith, Lindsay Hebb, Christian Moore, and Cassandra Keplinger.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Under substitute cook renewals for the 25-26 school year, we have Cassandra Keplinger.
Do you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0.
And under substitute custodian renewals for the 25-26 school year, we have Rebecca Miller, Mohammed bin Mazuza, and Cassandra Keplinger.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0.
Okay, we don't have anything under extracurricular employment for this meeting. And under leave, I recommend the following action as presented. Tina Price requesting unpaid leave of absence for 1 year, effective August 20, 2025.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion? Motion.
Well, I can tell you an update because Justin said it in church yesterday. I know she's been eating solid food. And you saw her like moving it.
Yes, she was doing.
She started eating solid food.
I mean, her goal is still to return to work. I pray for her.
Yeah.
You know, she's very lucky to even be here. So we definitely want to keep her in our prayers and support her.
You do motion, Swallow?
You did.
Yep. Vote, okay. That's 5-0.
And Muhammad would be the one in that position.
Nothing other policies? For the budget adjustment, financial statements, we got the contracts, anybody use? Anybody do?
Okay, do you want these together or separate? And I have him here to speak if you have any questions. The ones that
You guys, any question?
These are kind of competitive year in and year out, right?
Yes.
And I just want to clarify one thing. On the one from Best Life, we usually take those separately. Rhea has requested because we've been pretty fortunate. We've not had to reach out to her to ask her for extra services, but other counties have had to come back and ask for teachers and different services because they're not being able to provide, which thank God we've been able to provide things that we need to. So that's why you'll notice it's one big contract, and at the end, there's lots of services listed, just a schedule. So that's if something would happen and we get into January and we're not able to provide a service, the only way we can do it is to do a contract. And that gives us the ability to reach out to her and say, hey, can you provide this service if that's
So
how much
it looks a little different than it normally does, but it just puts it in there so that if we would have to have it, we could utilize those resources.
Okay.
And if that happens, I would definitely have Mrs. Langford let you know that we're in a situation that I can't provide services.
All right, we recommend the approval of the following items as presented. MOU between Region 8 Planning and Development and Tucker County Schools for the Foster Grandparent Program. Very blessed for that. The contract agreement between Sandra Mason and Tucker County Schools to provide West Virginia God Mr. Graduation and Community Transition Job Coach Specialist. The MOU between Marion County Board of Education and Tucker County Board of Education for Medicaid billing and monitoring services. And the contract agreement between Tucker County Schools and Best Life Therapy.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion on any of these contracts. Thank you. Passes 5-0.
And the bus purchase.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm asking this because I don't know the answer. Is the other bus company that they were considering Thomas Bus Company? I mean, there's nothing international.
I honestly don't know.
Like I see in the estimates, there's
Um,
Bluebird and then has Thomas.
I've ever done anything from Thomas that way. We typically,
Usually.
So if
Stay
they
with
were
Bluebird,
international,
Bluebird or International, I don't know that I've ever looked at anything Thomas, to be honest, Kathy. Typically we go with Bluebird, so that we have all the buses kind of the same, manufacturer. You know, I guess my issue with the bus purchase is that we used to get enough money to buy a bus and a half
Yeah.
every year. So we would buy one bus one year and two buses the next year, because we would take those two halves and say, okay, now we have enough for another bus. So one bus one year, two buses next year, one bus, two bus. And that's kind of how we kept our fleet. Now we don't even get enough money for one bus. I mean, the prices are ridiculous, let alone one and a half. So our fleet is dwindling because we're not able to do one bus, two bus. We have tried to do that in the years that we could, but it's really frustrating. And I don't know if it's because, you know, there's this push for electric buses that they're trying to incentivize that. And they're just not gonna work for us here. And the amount of money, I mean, we might be able to get the bus very cheap, but the amount of money we would have in putting a charging station would vastly outweigh that. I don't know, but it's very frustrating. But we're asking for approval of the Bluebird bus for one new 2027 Bluebird 77 passenger diesel powered conventional school bus.
Is this, Mr. Porter and Mr. Hicks' choice?
Yes,
This is-
I don't even pretend to understand what some of this stuff means.
Oh, no, no offense to you, I mean, and your choice, is this your choice too? I didn't mean to leave you out.
No, I don't even pretend to understand what some of that means. I leave that up to Jonathan and Mary.
So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any other questions on the I'd like to kind of say that it's what they recommend.
Yes.
When do you think it'll come in? June, maybe?
You know, I don't know. It's been better than it was the one year where everything was so back ordered that you were waiting almost a whole year for it. I would hope before December, but I'm not. October would be great. And traditionally, that's kind of the way it went. We would approve one in the summer and we would have it in October. But I don't know.
Any other questions? All in favor of the bus purchase? That's 5-0. We have nothing under new business. Calendar events.
Counselor, are you attending the?
Yeah, but I'll probably do, I'll try to Zoom. Because I'll try to do that. I'm not talking about this next week. So any other board member calendar events? What's the school's going to start up here in a couple weeks? Next regular board meeting will be held on August 4th at 4:30 here at the board office. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Like,
They do have a Zoom. I did check. We did have a Zoom.
Yeah.
Don't